The Galactic Council was never built for fairness. It was built to maintain control. 12 ancient species formed its backbone, each older than human civilization by millennia. They governed with calculated authority, cloaking conquest under the guise of diplomacy. When Earth arrived, loud, fast, unorthodox, they smiled politely and whispered warnings behind closed doors. In just 50 years, humanity disrupted galactic markets, re-engineered FDL navigation, and brought their messy, relentless creativity to the stars. The Council watched Earth rise with unease. The problem wasn't that humans were dangerous. The problem was they were effective, unpredictable, unshackled by the layers of ceremonial stagnation the elder species wrapped themselves in. Ambassador Amina Reyes embodied that spirit. She was Earth's representative, brilliant, multilingual, calm under fire, a war hero turned diplomat. She symbolized a transition from war to peace, and she believed in diplomacy with unwavering faith. When summoned to the Council's emergency summit, she thought it was to broker a ceasefire between two warring factions in the Valen Expanse. What she didn't know was that the Council had already decided her fate before she entered the chamber. The accusations came quickly. The Raxi delegates, one of the founding species, stood and claimed that Reyes had leaked Council data to insurgent systems. Fabricated evidence was displayed, holograms manipulated, encrypted records tampered with. It was all theater. Reyes stood her ground, demanding due process, invoking Earth's rights under interstellar law. Her voice was calm, composed, unafraid. But Earth had no allies in that room. Too many species had quietly grown resentful of humanity's presence. Too many saw this as an opportunity to cripple the upstart species without triggering war. The vote was called. 11 of the 12-member species voted in favor of immediate execution. Reyes was not even permitted to speak again. Her Terran aides were restrained. Amina turned her head toward the Council and delivered a single sentence. "You will regret this, not for me, but for what you awaken." Then the chamber was flooded with radiant violet light. The disintegration beam left nothing behind. No body, no ashes, just silence. The broadcast was made public. Billions on Earth watched as their envoy, unarmed, peaceful, innocent, was executed in cold, calculated betrayal. No warning, no trial, no appeal. Every channel carried it. Every child saw it. Every parent felt the burn of helpless fury. Earth did not respond with words. There was no condemnation issued, no plea for justice, no morning broadcast. What followed was absolute silence. For 36 hours, Earth said nothing, not a signal, not a reply, not a whisper across the stars. Then, quietly, Earth activated Protocol Vengeance. It was a contingency written decades earlier, long before humans were accepted into the Council. It was not about war. It was about response. A structured, deliberate plan triggered only if Earth was betrayed beyond diplomacy. Only if humanity's trust was not just broken, but shattered. The execution of Amina Reyes met every condition. Across Earth's colonies, orders were received. Civilian transmissions went dark. Military assets shifted position. Terraforming fleets changed trajectory mid-course. Resource convoys rerouted to Sol. Deep space science vessels powered down and fell silent. Every node of Earth's interstellar presence began collapsing inward, like a heart pulling blood to its center. The Sol system was sealed under Project Aegis, an experimental defense grid powered by quantum tunneling. External scans returned static. Surveillance probes met jamming fields. No one could see in, no one could contact out. The Council tried to reach out diplomatically. No response. They sent messages of regret, calls for talks, attempts at de-escalation. Still, silence. Delegates were dispatched toward Earth under banners of neutrality. They were turned back by automated relay systems. Earth was no longer accepting emissaries. Inside Sol, humanity worked. The Council was confused. They expected outrage, speeches, protests, perhaps even posturing. But instead, Earth had withdrawn. No threats, no retaliation, just disappearance. They debated whether the Terrans had collapsed internally, lost their will, perhaps too emotional to maintain order. But deep down, among those who knew humans best, there was fear. The humans had not retreated. They were preparing. One by one, former Earth allies went dark. Some broke their council treaties and aligned themselves with Sol and Silence. Others chose neutrality, unwilling to challenge humanity's coming course. The council misread it all. Thraxi officials openly mocked Earth's response. They lacked a spine for war, one delegate said. They're hiding. But others remembered. They remembered the siege of Callan Rift, when 20 human vessels held off an armada for 6 weeks. They remembered the Battle of Tyro's Hollow, where human ground troops had fought without air support, winning by willpower alone. And they remembered the core lesson in every human engagement. When provoked, Earth did not fight fair. It fought to win. The decision to execute Amina Reyes had been made in arrogance. It was a move meant to show dominance. But all it had done was awaken something that no council member truly understood: the human capacity for righteous fury. Not rage, not vengeance in the childish sense, but something colder, methodical, inevitable. Earth had sent Reyes in peace. The galaxy had chosen betrayal. Now Earth would respond in its own language. And that language had never been diplomacy. It had always been consequence. The Council believed Earth was broken. A culture that prized diplomacy must surely be paralyzed by the murder of its envoy. Surely, humans were too young to risk war with civilizations that had ruled the stars for millennia. In their minds, humanity's silence was fear. Inaction, a stunned and humiliated retreat. They were wrong. Within a week of Amina Reyes' execution, Earth vanished. No, not physically. The planet remained in its orbit. Its colonies still registered in star charts. But in every practical sense, Earth was gone. All diplomatic channels terminated. All open transmissions ceased. Commercial trade suspended. Scientific outposts abandoned or fortified. Every probe, every sensor, every communication directed at Sol was met with the same response: silence. And when the Council sent reconnaissance drones into the system, those drones disappeared. The Project Aegis defense grid wasn't just theoretical. It was functional and absolute. Quantum interference fields, weaponized radiation clouds, gravitational distortion emitters. Nothing escaped the system. Not light, not data, not ships. At first, the Council called it posturing, a tantrum, a phase. They'd seen species protest before. This was different. They assured themselves. But then, Earth's allies began to drift away from the Council. Quietly, without confrontation. Trade routes changed. Patrol fleets repositioned. Entire border colonies shifted allegiance, not to Earth directly, but to neutrality, or something far closer to it. A pattern began to form, and with it, unease. Several species suggested reaching out again, this time with humility. They proposed an apology, an official statement of regret. Amina Reyes, after all, had not been proven guilty. The execution had been hasty, politically motivated, perhaps even illegal under council law. But it was too late. Earth no longer cared for apologies. Months passed, and the silence grew louder. Then came the incident on Corval Station. Located in a neutral zone, Corval had been a major communications relay hub. One standard cycle. It simply vanished. No explosion. No debris. Just absence. Where once a station had spun in orbit, there was nothing. The event sent shockwaves through Council intelligence. Investigations began. Sensor log from nearby freighters showed only a faint energy spike. Brief, clean, precise. It matched no known weapon signature. Then a message arrived. 4 words. No encryption. No context. Just a tight beam pulse delivered to the Council's core relay. For Amina, begin count. Panic began to spread. In response, the Council dispatched a small scouting unit. 4 ships, cloaked and silent, into the Sol system to confirm Earth state and assess any military buildup. The ships passed the quarantine perimeter. Their logs tracked the jump. Then static. No further communication. No final distress call. They were simply erased from the network. Their last transmission, a short video snippet with corrupted audio. A crew member turning toward the camera, face twisted in shock. Behind him, the starfield folded inward unnaturally. The video cut off mid-frame. Now, even the most arrogant voices in the council began to whisper what others fear to say aloud. Earth wasn't hiding. It was hunting. The Raxi leadership dismissed the theory. They called the council paranoid, still convinced Earth lacked the backbone for prolonged conflict. They demanded more pressure be applied. Economic sanctions, blockade protocols, diplomatic isolation. But none of it worked. Earth didn't respond to isolation because Earth had already isolated itself. It didn't need the council's markets, didn't care for their approval, and didn't operate by their rules anymore. On distant mining worlds, human ships were seen extracting resources in previously off-limit zones. On remote moons, stealth beacons appeared overnight, pulsing coded signals across dark space. When council ships attempted interception, the beacons self-destructed, melting into slag with no trace of data. And yet, Earth never declared war. There were no ultimatums, no manifestos, no formal announcements of hostilities. That was what unsettled the galaxy most. This wasn't rage. It was purpose, a methodical, quiet calculation unfolding across the stars. Alien intelligence networks tried to piece together Earth's actions. Patterns were examined, timelines reconstructed, but nothing made sense because the assumptions were all wrong. They assumed Earth's silence was a delay. In truth, it was a countdown, and it was almost over. Then came the black signal. A data packet arrived simultaneously at every major council capital, encrypted in an ancient Terran dialect no alien system could decrypt. Human linguists among allied species translated it within minutes. It read, "Justice is not a request. It is a sentence. Protocol vengeance is now active." The message included a timestamp, Galactic Standard Time. The council scrambled, not knowing what the number signified. 12 hours later, the second signal came. All human colonies had vanished from public star charts. Their transponders went dark. Civilian traffic stopped. Every record of humanity's location and movement was erased from public navigation networks. A coordinated disappearance on a scale the galaxy had never witnessed. Speculation turned into fear. Whispers filled the chambers of the council. Had Earth developed temporal weapons? Was it preparing a system-scale singularity? No one knew. No one could confirm. But the mood shifted. An emergency session was called. Representatives argued over how to re-establish communication. Some demanded an immediate apology be issued, full and unconditional. Others insisted on war preparation, calling Earth a rogue state. But in the deepest corners of the chamber, no one asked if Earth would strike. Only when, and in what form. For the first time in galactic history, species who once considered humanity a minor ally now treated its silence like a loaded weapon. The sense of balance was gone. The unknown became the threat. Every unmarked ship was suspect. Every echo in space was a possible harbinger. The Council had executed a diplomat, and Earth had responded by vanishing from aboard, but not from the game. And the galaxy was starting to understand. Humanity didn't rage. It calculated. Humanity didn't protest. It prepared. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of their most sensitive instruments, Earth was almost ready to answer. They came without warning. The Council's outermost observation station in the Trident Nebula detected gravitational distortions first, ripples in space-time too precise to be natural. 3 minutes later, every listening post in the quadrant received the same scrambled message on an obsolete Terran frequency, one used during humanity's early deep space missions. It simply read, "Black ships deployed, protocol vengeance, phase 2. At first, no one understood what black ships meant. Then the destruction began. The outpost at Alien Verge was the first to fall. A council military installation, garrisoned by elite Aurelian warriors and fortified with defense satellites. It vanished in under 90 seconds. No explosion, no distress signal. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, scorched clean from the planet's surface, its orbit strewn with superheated slag. Long-range scans showed a strange afterglow, radiation signatures inconsistent with any known weapon. More importantly, the orbital data confirmed something chilling. The attack had not come from conventional vector entry. The enemy ships had not arrived from space. They had emerged from within it, ripped through fabric like blades through cloth. The Council convened an emergency defense session. The term black ships became the center of speculation. Some said they were myth. Others, Earth's forbidden weapons program. But there were survivors. Barely. A single maintenance drone from Alien Verge had been transmitting real-time footage before the blackout. The image it captured was burned into the minds of everyone who saw it. A silhouette, jet black, asymmetrical, larger than any known dreadnought. Its hull bore no markings. No windows. No lights. Just obsidian metal veined with pulsing red seams, as if the ship itself was alive. As it moved, it left a wake of gravitational shear that collapsed the nearby moon's crust. The footage ended with a sudden spike of localized singularity, something that should not have been possible in open space. In the next 72 hours, for more Council installations were annihilated. No declaration, no communication, just cold, targeted strikes. Then came the pattern. The installations destroyed were not random. Each one had either supported the vote for Amina Rhea's execution or participated in the cover-up. The black ships were not attacking at will. They were following a list. The Council realized too late. Earth wasn't at war with the galaxy. It was executing a sentence. And it was doing so with surgical, unstoppable precision. For all their centuries of technological supremacy, none of the elder species could match what Earth had unleashed. The black ships were beyond conventional physics. They moved without propulsion trails. They fired no visible weapons. They arrived without warning and left behind nothing but absence. Attempts to counterattack failed. One strike fleet, composed of 15 ships from 5 different species, launched an ambush at the supposed emergence point of a black ship. The humans never arrived. Instead, a silent EMP cascade shut down the entire fleet systems. For 6 minutes, they floated helpless, blind and vulnerable. When power returned, one of their own ships was gone. Not destroyed, removed. The data log showed a flicker of spatial implosion, followed by zero mass detection. They weren't fighting a navy. They were facing something closer to judgment. And Earth still hadn't spoken. No demands were made. No territory claimed. No ideological statements. Only the slow, methodical dismantling of those responsible. Then, out of nowhere, the silence broke. A single message was received by the Council. This time, it was from Earth. Plain audio. No encryption. Human voice. A woman's voice, calm, emotionless. This is not war. This is justice. Your vote murdered peace. Our reply is not anger. It is balance. The list will be completed. Do not interfere. Do not follow. Do not resist. You will not receive this warning again. It matched the voice profile of Amina Reyes. The Council's analysts dismissed it at first. She was dead, vaporized, erased from existence by the Council's own weapon. But Earth's technologies had evolved. The possibility that her consciousness had been preserved, digitally, biologically, or otherwise, could not be ruled out. And if that voice was real, if Reyes was somehow still alive or encoded into Earth systems, it changed everything. Fear overtook reason. Council species began defecting in secret. Ambassadors vanished from their posts. Some member worlds withdrew from the Central Alliance entirely, declaring neutrality. A few even reached out to Earth directly, offering evidence, information, anything that might spare them. Earth did not respond. Meanwhile, the list continued. The black ship struck a floating fortress above Nkral, a world that had lobbied hardest for Earth's expulsion decades earlier. The fortress was not destroyed in the traditional sense. It was inverted. Its mass turned inside out in a burst of impossible physics. Every sensor, watching went dark instantly. Recovery drones found nothing but a perfect sphere of polished carbon where the structure once stood. Terror spread. A new coalition formed within the Council, urging immediate surrender. They argued that Earth wasn't seeking conquest. It was enforcing consequence, and it would stop only when the exact price had been paid. No more, no less. But the old powers refused. Pride, shame, and political inertia held them hostage. They had ruled the galaxy for eons. They could not kneel to a species barely a few centuries into spaceflight. And so, Earth continued. A new phase began. Civilian infrastructure, untouched until now, was targeted. Communications nexuses, political archives, transport networks, not destroyed, but rewritten. Council species awoke to find their histories altered, their records edited, their flags erased from official channels. It was psychological warfare, cold, efficient, and utterly demoralizing. Not a shot was fired, but entire civilizations felt the weight of irrelevance pressed upon them. Earth had taken the war beyond the physical. Now it was erasing memory itself. And yet it never lied. Every target was tied to the vote. Every strike was justified by data. Earth documented each action, each deletion, each ship erased, as if it were writing a ledger, not of war, but of punishment. Protocol vengeance was never about retaliation. It was never emotional. It was a function, a program, a sentence being carried out with relentless discipline. And across the stars, species once dismissive of humanity now watched the black ships move through the void like executioners. Not chaotic, not cruel, just inevitable. The galaxy held its breath. The Council had underestimated humanity from beginning, but now they were witnessing the unthinkable. A species, once considered a minor player, dismantling millennia of authority with relentless precision. It wasn't a war. It was execution. Earth had been patient. It had waited. It had calculated the moment when no diplomatic recourse would remain, when the Council's influence was too fractured and its grip too weak to stop the inevitable. The black ships, those sleek, enigmatic vessels, continued their campaign of surgical strikes, leaving no trace of their passage. And still, the Council insisted that the humans were not serious. The fatal mistake was made when the Council tried to launch a counteroffensive. As a final measure of defense, they pooled their remaining military forces, those not already targeted, and assembled a fleet the likes of which had not been seen since the dawn of the Galactic Wars. The fleet was massive, a combination of advanced ships from over 12 different species, each armed with cutting-edge technology. They believed they could overwhelm Earth's defenses, that they could strike fast and hard enough to force Earth to the negotiating table. It was an act of desperation, and like so many desperate acts before, it was doomed from the start. The Council fleet jumped into the Sol system at full speed. Their ships emerged from fold space with blinding acceleration, but as soon as they crossed the event horizon, their trajectory shifted. One by one, their vessels were yanked off course by the immense gravitational distortions that had begun to ripple outward from Earth space. They weren't battling enemy ships. They were fighting a warping of space itself. The black ships had not been alone. Earth's hidden weapons had been prepared for a conflict of this scale. Gravitational singularity fields, quantum entanglement disruptors, and temporal destabilizers. Earth had weapons not just of mass destruction, but of mass manipulation. The first ship of the fleet, an immense and legendary Corthian dreadnought, vanished into a singularity, its hull collapsing inward until there was nothing left but raw energy. The second ship, a Shire-class carrier, was torn apart in an explosion that defied the laws of conventional physics. No debris, no remnants, just absence. The rest of the fleet scattered, trying to flee, but the gravitational pull from Earth for prepared defenses was too much. They were drawn in one by one, helpless, like moths to a flame. The black ships didn't need to engage. They didn't need to fire a single shot. They simply watched, like silent observers, as Earth systems dismantled the greatest military fleet the galaxy had ever seen. Within a matter of hours, the fleet was gone. The Council had lost its final trump card. As the last Council ship fell silent, Earth's message arrived. It was broadcast across the galaxy, a final transmission, not to the Council, but to every species that had once held power. The message, again, was simple. The price has been paid. Justice is complete. No threats, no demands, just a quiet declaration. Earth had never wanted to rule the stars. Earth had never wanted dominion. But Earth had a singular purpose: to right the wrongs that had been inflicted upon it. In the aftermath, as silence enveloped the galaxy, the Council's remaining members could only watch. They had made the mistake of underestimating a species that had always fought with the ferocity of survival. Earth had fought not for conquest, but for the one thing that mattered most to it: respect. The Council was broken, but in its brokenness, a new order began to emerge. One not built on the old powers, but on the understanding that the galaxy could no longer remain under control of those who believed they were untouchable. New alliances formed in the wake of Earth's silent vengeance. Many species, once loyal to the Council, now reached out to Earth, not in submission, but in recognition. Humanity had shown them a simple truth. Peace was not the absence of conflict, but the balance that must be maintained when justice had been served. Earth's vengeance had been cold, calculating, and exacted only on those who were responsible. But it had been decisive. The black ships returned to their dark spaces, fading into the unknown, leaving the galaxy forever changed. The old regime of the Council was no more, its power fractured beyond repair. The species that had once ruled the stars were now forced to reckon with a future in which humanity would no longer be subjugated, where no longer would species rise without expecting to face consequence for its actions. And Earth, its vengeance completed, finally spoke again, not to the Council, not to the galaxy, but to its people. We have completed the task. We have fulfilled our duty. We return to the stars, not as conquerors, but as guardians of peace. Let no being forget that Earth is not a creature of war. We are a people of justice. And so it was that Earth's message was carried on the cosmic winds, silent but unyielding. Those who had betrayed humanity had been made to understand what it meant to provoke a species that had never forgotten how to fight, not with weapons, not with war, but with balance, with justice, with vengeance. The galaxy would never forget what happened when Earth's vengeance mode was activated, and humanity's rise had only just begun.